Hi everybody, it's Christopher and welcome to Life's Not Over, It Just Looks Different on YouTube. Today I want to talk about some of the things that I've done to advocate for myself in educational settings. Back in early 2006, around March 2006, after the doctor had told me that I probably recovered about all the eyesight I was going to, and after my workplace had told me that even if I did recover my eyesight, I was losing my job because my job was moving to another city, I needed to start thinking about the future and where I was going to be able to work and what I wanted to do and all that sort of thing. So one of the things that I decided to do, at least in the interim, was to study the Canadian Securities course, which is sort of the first course you need if you're going to work with investment products in Canada. And so I decided to enroll in the Canadian Securities course, but before I did, I got in touch with them and I asked them what sort of methods or if they would be able to accommodate me when it was time to take the exams, because the course was home study, so they would just send me the textbooks. I would do the reading and then do some exams and things online, which I was all able to do because I had my Zoom text software, which I've talked about before, and I had the CCTV for reading the textbooks, so that wasn't going to be a problem. But my bigger concern was what was going to happen with the exams, and would they be able to accommodate me? They said they would, and that was where we sort of left the conversation at the beginning. A few months later, when it was time to take the first of the two exams, I got in touch with them again and I said, okay, I'm almost ready to take the first exam. Here's what I need to in order to be able to take the exam. Will you be able to accommodate this? And they said that the first thing they needed was a doctor's note. Okay, fine, that makes sense. So I went and saw my family doctor and talked to her about it, and basically she asked me what to put in the note. And so I told them at that time that I would need any printed material in 28-point font, and if it was going to be a computer-based exam, I needed to have Zoom text software on the computer to magnify the screen. And that's what we put in the note. And the doctor also asked for, she put in the note also asking for 50% additional time to do the exam. So I got that note written up, dated, everything else, sent it off to the Canadian Securities Institute, who was the provider of the course. They reviewed it, said, yeah, no problem, we can accommodate this. So I booked my exam, and on the exam day, they brought me a large print copy of the exam. And when I say large print, I'm not kidding. Because it was in 28-point font, they used 14 by 17 inch paper to print it on. And whereas the normal exam for everybody else, which I think was in about 11 or 12-point font, that exam sheet that exam was about 10 pages long. My exam was 52 pages in that large print with those large sheets. When they brought it over to me and they put it in front of me on the desk, they kind of dropped it down and it went thud on the desk. Kind of got everybody's attention in the room. But it was what I needed to get the job done, and I was also granted the additional time, so it was normally a 2-hour exam. I was given 3 hours to complete it, and I needed that additional time because I think I finished the exam with about 10 minutes to spare. When I went into my first job in the financial services business, I also had to get my life insurance license. Now again, the life insurance exam in Ontario, where I was living at the time, it was 2 stages. You had to do sort of the qualifying exam, and then once you passed it, you would go on to the, I guess what they call the actual exam. And when I requested to do the qualifying exam, I was given no pushback. They took my doctor's note that I had written already a couple of years earlier. They took that doctor's note with no problem. I got what I needed. I got the accommodations I needed there for a paper exam, and everything was fine. When it came time to do the second exam, they told me that it was going to be computer-based, And so I said, well, in that case, as my note indicates, I need Zoom Text software and I need 50% extra time. They said, well, we do have magnification on the computer, but you can't have the 50% additional time. This exam was normally going to be about 4 hours, so 50% would have been a 6-hour exam. They said you can have 1 extra hour. That wasn't really gonna, well, I wasn't really sure how that was going to work. I didn't get a good feeling about it. I didn't really know how that was going to work out for me, but I didn't push too hard. I thought, well, you know what, we'll just see how this goes. If I have to rewrite, I have to rewrite. So I got to the exam location and they showed me the magnification on the computer. It was enlarged. It wasn't Zoom Text software. It was just they enlarged the print on the screen, and so I had to move around a lot in order to be able to read everything. And again, they were only giving me that 1 extra hour. So the other thing that they did for me was I needed to fill out one of these Scantron sheets where you color in the little circle for your answers, and then they put it in the computer, scan it, and there's your exam result. They couldn't make those in large print, so they provided me with a proctor, and basically what I had to do was read the exam on this magnified screen, and then dictate my answers to her, where she would color in the little dots. The exam supervisor came to check on me about 3 hours in, maybe 3.5 hours in. He came to check on me, and he said, Christopher, we see how much you're having to move around and how much extra scanning you're having to do on this computer screen, so we're going to give you an additional 30 minutes on the exam. So that now took me up to 5.5 for the exam time. And the other thing that I didn't know he did, because of course I was focused on the exam and focused on the screen, and I was dictating my answers to the proctor, but I wasn't really watching her. And the other thing that I didn't notice that he had done was a little bit closer to the 5-hour mark. He at some point had come in, taken my sheet away from her, scanned it, and got my mark ahead of time. And so he came back to me with about 30 minutes to go, and he said, you can continue if you want, but I want to let you know that you've already passed. And I thought, wow, okay, that's fine. But I looked at the proctor and I looked at the exam supervisor and I said, well, if it's all the same to you, and since you've given me the extra time, I'd kind of like to, just make my score a little bit better if I can, answer a few more questions, and because I was nowhere near actually answering all of the questions, but I thought, well, I'd like to answer a few more at least and just pad the mark a little bit, which the proctor was okay with, the supervisor was okay with, so that's what I went ahead and did. So that all worked really well for life in the financial services industry. That was the one and only time I had to do anything for life insurance, and thankfully the only time I had to deal with that magnification that they gave me, because that wasn't a lot of fun. Any subsequent exams that I did in the financial services industry, again, they were all through Canadian Securities Institute, and they were really fantastic at letting me have the large print, the extra time, all of those things. The one thing that did change for some of my later tests is they did something similar to the insurance exam people, and they put me, instead of having me in the same room as everybody else, just getting more time, they had me go into an individual room with just a proctor, and I would dictate my answers to the proctor and she would fill out the Scantron sheet. So that was the one thing that changed there. Fast forward a number of years later, when I got to Calgary, I decided to go back to school and study accounting and payroll. And I did at one of these business colleges. And of course I asked them too. I said, what sort of things can you do to accommodate me? And so we had a discussion about that, and I told them what I needed, similar as that I've done in job interviews. I told them exactly what I needed: Zoom Text software on my computer, that I needed large print if it was going to be in print, or that I needed the magnifying software, and that I needed additional time for the exams. They were able to provide large print when I needed it. The one thing that they weren't able to do, they said that they would have magnification software on their computers that I could use. That actually didn't turn out the way they said. So what I ended up doing was taking my own version of ZoomText software to the school with me, loading it on the school's computers. And then for the year that I was in that school, anytime that I had to switch from one classroom to another, they would actually physically pick up my computer and move it to the other room, because it already had the computer software loaded on it. So they didn't want to have to unload the software or mess around with any of that stuff. They just physically picked up that computer and took it to the other classroom, wherever I needed to be. So again, not an ideal setup for accommodation on their part, but we did get it worked out. At least they were willing to let me install my own version of the software on their computers. So we got the job done. I remember one exam in particular. It was a computer-based exam. So then there was a series of them. There was actually about 6 of them that I was doing for the Canadian Payroll Association. And they couldn't program the exam time. They couldn't change it to give me the additional 50% time I needed. So what they did instead, it was a 2-hour exam, and to give me the 3rd hour, what they would do is halfway through or 1 hour into the exam, so halfway through for everybody else, they stopped me. They saved all my answers. My instructor would go and call the office of the people who were actually administering the exam, the Canadian Payroll Association. They would reset the clock, giving me, again, the 2 hours. So it turned into 3 hours. And this is how we did it for all 6 of the exams that I needed to do through them. It worked. That's all I can say. I was really appreciative that they figured out a way to do it. I was really glad that they did, and it worked. And so it's been good. And I was really lucky that, just with the help of a doctor's note and just being able to advocate for myself and speak up for what I needed. Yeah, I didn't really advocate for myself very strongly in the insurance one, but I would have if something had gone wrong and it was really a disaster, or if I had not passed on the first try. I would have advocated harder and told them that it just, the circumstances weren't right. But luckily I didn't need that, so it worked out okay. That was just some of the information that I wanted to share with you today. I thank you very much for watching. By all means, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to drop comments down below. And if you have any questions, you can always email me at christopher@lifesnotover.ca. I want to thank you very much for watching today, and I hope you have a wonderful day.